Hello, it's Jacob from Purposeless Rabbit Holes, and holy shit, this has been a weird year for video games. I don't think it's really an exaggeration to say that the last 2 years of gaming have been rough. So far, we've seen every type of fuckery imaginable from this industry, and it hasn't really gotten better. In 2015, not really an exception. That's why I don't actually have a top 10 games this year. I have five games that I actually enjoyed playing. And that's really pathetic. But hey, I'll give you those 5 real fast. Coming in at number 5, Hotline Miami 2. The original Hotline Miami is easily one of my favorite indie games of all time, a gory descent into 80s hallucinatory madness with a near-perfect balance of difficulty and accessibility. The sequel is not as good, but still a good follow-up in its own right. Oh, and it has one of the best game soundtracks of the year. 4. Axial Verge. The Metroidvania genre has seen a million billion entries since Shadow Complex's debut in 2009 that practically revived the genre from scratch. So when a Metroidvania game stands out now, that's saying a lot. Axial Verge is not only a fun twist on the genre with its glitch mechanics, but the fact that only one guy made the entire game, down to its music, makes it a miracle. 3. Grow Home. I love 3D platformers, otherwise I wouldn't be backing Ukulele on Kickstarter. But of all the companies in the world, Ubisoft managed to put out one of the most charming ones in years. It's a short but very sweet game. Oh, and the climbing mechanics are pretty cool. Number 2, the Talos Principle. Yeah, I know this was a PC release last year, but I don't have a good gaming PC, and it came to PS4 in August, so what the hell? It's a great puzzle game in its own right, but its internal mythology and story make it an exceptional game. Oh, and holy shit, how did the Serious Sam guys develop this? Number 1, Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain. On paper, this game is disappointing. The ending is a clusterfuck, content appears to have been removed from the game, and the prologue to the game was sold to us at a ridiculous price. And yet, Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain is still a knockout. Best moment-to-moment gameplay of not only the entire Metal Gear series, but easily my favorite moment-to-moment gameplay of the entire year. Let me be clear about something. I didn't get to play every game I wanted to this year. Games like Undertale and Tales from the Borderlands are games I'm dying to play, but I didn't get to them. But what am I to do without 5 games to round out my list? Don't worry, I have a solution. Keeping with my intro, I want to talk about 5 games that let me down, as in the most disappointing games of the year. Some of the games on here are not only mechanically competent, but some of them are even fun to play. But disappointment is subjective as hell, and these 5 games should have and could have been so much more. Without further ado, the top 5 games that let me down this year. Number 5, The Order 1886. Yeah, this kind of looked like a generic third-person shooter, but how fucking cool does the setup sound? The Knights of the Round Table reimagined with a genuinely unique mythology of extended lifespans? A class war in Victorian London that's only made worse by the growing gap in this alternate timeline steampunk technology? Oh, and goddamn werewolves? But what makes it a hugely disappointing game was its pathetically short campaign, overall lack of interesting level design and weapons, and a story that didn't take advantage of its cool setup. And just to pile onto its misery, The Order is a first-party game from Sony, developed by Ready at Dawn, the studio that made the PSP God of War spin-offs, Chains of Olympus and Ghost of Sparta, which were damn good games. First-party support on the current consoles has been nothing more than an embarrassing look at how pretty graphics engines can get with as little substance as possible, and The Order is especially embarrassing considering the fact we're almost 2 years into this console cycle. Shame on you, Sony. Shame on you. Number 4, Batman Arkham Knight. I don't want to talk about this game. I literally don't. Hell, when I was making this list, I considered throwing this in the number 1 slot, but even that seemed a bit excessive for a game that gets so much right. The environmental design is gorgeous. The stealth combat is the best it's ever been, but the real shortcoming of Arkham Knight is that this game didn't know when to stop adding shit. What made Arkham City such an incredible sequel to Arkham Asylum was that the additions to its mechanics felt like a natural evolution of the concepts from the first game. Arkham Knight drowns you in unnecessary bullshit in its first few hours, and unfortunately most of the game's problems are tied to the Batmobile. Shoehorning the Batmobile into environmental puzzles was not the way to use it. Neither was drowning the game in enough tank combat that if you squinted a bit, you'd think you were playing an HD remaster of Twisted Metal. And the last thing this game needed was the Riddler racetracks. What the fuck even happened for that to get approved? All of this would have been annoying, but this game really doesn't even remotely feel like a Batman game at all. The instant I rammed a man's face into an AC unit, the many times I ran over people in the Batmobile without meaning to, the fact I spent more time shooting a literal tank at other tanks made this feel less like a Batman game and more like a Judge Dredd game. A beautiful Judge Dredd game, but I wanted to play as Batman. Despite all of that, I still enjoyed this game, and putting it at the #1 slot seemed disingenuous. No matter how much bullshit they pulled with that worthless $40 season pass, no matter how busted the PC version was, I still liked it enough to be a bit merciful. But let's hope that Rocksteady is serious about moving on from the Arkham franchise, because if this game is any indication, they seem like they're out of ideas for the big bad bat. Number 3. Everybody's Gone to the Rapture. I don't want to spoil this game, but I'll tell you this much. Why did they forget to put a real ending in? Why? It's a bummer that this game manages to squander all of the incredible storytelling and ideas it has by absolutely face-planting at the end. I was so close to giving this game a pass. The writing and voice acting are some of the best I've heard in years, raw and emotionally powerful in ways that video games usually aren't. It even managed to make the experience of walking down a path one of the most haunting moments I've had in a game in years, but the game's ending has so little resolution that it left me feeling cold. If this game had nailed its ending, it would occupy Hotline Miami 2's slot on my top games of 2015. Instead, it's relegated to this list. It's a damn shame, too. Number 2, Star Wars Battlefront. $50 for your season pass and you have the balls to charge $60 for your game that doesn't have prequel characters, a campaign, galactic conquest, or even space battles, or many other features available in both previous Battlefront games? Are you actually shitting me? Ugh. At least it sounds nice and looks pretty. Number 1, Evolve. I've been trying to write a script for this video for a while now, and no matter how hard I try, I can't put into words how angry this game made me. How the fuck did the people behind Left 4 Dead 2, a game that constantly added free mutators and modes to its multiplayer, develop the literal definition of a game built as a platform for paid DLC? And how did Take-Two think it was going to get away with charging $60 for this? If Evolve had been a free-to-play game with paid character unlocks, it instantly would be a better game. No matter how much I write down and rant to myself yelling at walls, the bottom line with this game is that it was never worth its $60 price tag. It's no wonder that at the exact moment I'm writing the script, you can find copies of this game on Amazon for as low as $15. And that's because most people sold it when they realized how little content and modes and characters were actually available. But not me. Oh, not me. I didn't sell my copy of Evolve for PS4. Why? Because like an idiot, I pre-ordered it from PlayStation Network, which means I'm stuck with it forever. Trust me, I deleted it off my hard drive a long time ago, but I still feel the absence of 320s that I could have spent on any number of better indie games for the platform. Before I wrap this list up, I want to say that it's not a coincidence that 3 of the games on this list have ridiculous season pass bullshit, and that the top 2 games are practically multiplayer-only shells of what they could have been. This shit has to stop, and I hope that 2016 is a better year for games. Well, here's to hoping. At least The Witness comes out next year. Can't wait to see what Jonathan Blow's cooked up this time.